Every retirement case study you have ever seen starts the same way. Meet Bob and Sue. 2 incomes, 2 Social Security checks, 2 people to split the bills. But about 4 in 10 Americans over 65 are on their own, with 1 income, 1 check, and a set of bills that does not care. There is only 1 name on the mailbox. Almost nobody runs that case. So today we run it, start to finish. One woman, $450,000 saved, $2,200 a month from Social Security, every real number on screen. Welcome to the Retirement Lab. I'm Susan Mitchell, and my usual reminder before we start, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not personal advice. This is a lab. We run the numbers so you can see how the machine works, and then you check everything against your own life. Here is something I find genuinely strange. Go watch any big retirement video, ours included. The case study is always a couple, Bob and Sue, Jim and Nancy. Last episode it was Tom and Carol, and the audience has noticed. On one of the biggest Social Security videos on YouTube, a video with over 400,000 views, the top comment says, "Please start including more single people scenarios and case studies." More than 300 people pressed like on that. Right under it, another 200 liked this one. "We would love scenarios for single folks. There's a lot of us out there." There are. Widowed, divorced, never married. Around 4 in 10 Americans over 65, which works out to tens of millions of people, all planning a retirement with 1 income, while nearly every case study they can find assumes 2. Even the online calculators do it. There's always a box for your spouse's income, sitting there empty, quietly suggesting you're missing something. You're not missing something, you're running different math. And different math is exactly what this channel is for. One more note before we meet our case. If you saw our last episode, we built a full monthly paycheck system, the cash runway, the refill rule, all of it. That machine works exactly the same, whether one person runs it or 2, so I'm not going to rebuild it today. Today is about the inputs that change when there is 1 name on the account. Our case is Linda. She's 67. She spent 41 years working, the last 19 of them running the front office of a medical clinic, and she retired 6 weeks ago. She was married once, in her 20s, for 7 years. Since then, it's been her, a small paid-off house, and for most of those years, a dog. Here is her whole financial life on 1 page. She has $450,000 saved. Like Tom and Carol's $600,000, it sounds like 1 number, but it's really 3. About $330,000 sits in pre-tax accounts, her old 401k, and a rollover IRA. $85,000 is in a regular taxable brokerage account. And $35,000 is in a Roth IRA she started in her 50s, once the house was paid off and there was finally room to breathe. Social Security pays her $2,200 a month, 1 check. She claimed at 67, her full retirement age, and that number is hers as of 2026. Yours will be different, and you can see it any time by logging in at ssa.gov. And her spending. Linda did the thing I beg everyone to do. She tracked 6 months of real statements before she retired, highlighter and all. Her life costs about $3,800 a month. House paid off, 1 car, groceries, insurance, a trip to see her sister every year, dinners out with friends. Now hold those 2 numbers next to each other for a second. Tom and Carol, 2 people, spend $4,900 a month. Linda, 1 person, spends $3,800. 1 person is not costing half of what 2 people cost. She's costing almost 80%. That's not because Linda is careless with money. She is the opposite of careless. It's because of the way bills actually work, and that is the single most important thing to understand about retiring on your own. So let's open up her $3,800 and look at where every dollar goes. Start with the house. Linda's property tax runs about $310 a month. If a couple lived in that exact house, the tax would be $310. The county does not send a discount for living alone. Homeowners insurance, same story. The roof does not know how many people sleep under it. Her utilities are a little lower than a couple's. One person showers less than two, but the furnace heats the whole house either way. Call her utilities and home insurance $340 a month, where a couple in the same house might pay $370. Her car costs about $520 a month all in, insurance, gas, maintenance, and a bit set aside for the eventual replacement. Here's a place a single person genuinely saves, because Tom and Carol run 2 cars at roughly $940. One driver, one car. That line really does shrink. Groceries, about $380. A couple's might be $680. Less than double, notice, because nobody sells half a rotisserie chicken and the fixed stuff in the cart doesn't care how many plates are on the table. Anyone who has cooked for one knows the strange math of it. Then, Medicare. This one surprises people. Healthcare in retirement is priced per person, so a single retiree pays exactly what each half of a couple pays. Linda's Part B premium, her supplement, and her drug plan come to about $390 a month as of 2026. A couple pays that twice. No marriage discount exists, but no single penalty either. It's the one big line that's perfectly fair. Phone and internet, about $130. The internet bill is the internet bill, whether one person streams or two. And the rest, roughly $1,730 a month, is her life. Travel. Gifts for the grandnieces, dinners out, clothes, the dog, house upkeep, a little cushion for surprises. Add it up and you get her $3,800. And you can see the pattern now. The lines tied to people, like food and cars, shrink a lot. The lines tied to the house and to systems, like property tax, insurance, internet, and Medicare, shrink barely or not at all. That's why the rule of thumb researchers keep landing on is that one person spends somewhere around 70 to 80% of what a couple spends, not 50. If you remember one number from this section, make it that one. This is also why I wince a little when a well-meaning friend tells a single person, "Oh, you only need half of what we need." No, you need about 3/4 of it, with half the income coming in. Which brings us to the check. $2,200 on the second Wednesday of the month. That's Linda's entire guaranteed income. Tom and Carol had $2,900 between them, and if you've watched enough retirement videos, you know couples where the checks together top $4,000. Being single here means 2 honest disadvantages, and I want to name them plainly, because pretending they don't exist is how people get blindsided. First, there is no second check to lean on. When a married person's benefit is small, Social Security can top it up based on the spouse's record. Linda gets what Linda earned. Full stop. Second, there is no survivor benefit waiting behind her. When one spouse dies, the survivor keeps the larger of the 2 checks. It softens the blow of losing an income. Linda's plan has no cushion like that hiding in it. Her check is the cushion. One footnote here that surprisingly few people know, and it's worth 30 seconds of your time if you're divorced. If your marriage lasted 10 years or more and you haven't remarried, you may be able to claim on your ex-spouse's record instead of your own, up to half of their full benefit, and it doesn't reduce their check or even involve them. Linda's marriage was 7 years, so she misses the cutoff. If yours crossed 10, look it up at ssa.gov before you claim. I've read comments from people who found hundreds of dollars a month they didn't know existed. So, $3,800 going out, $2,200 coming in. The gap is $1,600 a month, and Linda's $450,000 has to produce it. $1,600 a month is $19,200 a year. Divide that by $450,000 and you get a withdrawal rate a little over 4.25%. Now, if you've spent any time in this corner of YouTube, an alarm just went off in your head. 4% is the classic guideline, and she's above it. So let's be honest about it instead of rounding it away, because this is exactly where a single person's plan needs clear eyes. Is 4.25% reckless? No. The old 4% guideline was built for a 30-year retirement starting around 65. Linda is starting at 67, and rates a bit above 4 have historically worked out fine more often than not. But Fi more often than not is doing some work in that sentence, and Linda has one particular reason to respect it. A single woman at 67 has decent odds of living into her 90s. Long life is wonderful. It is also expensive. So instead of hand-waving, Linda does what I wish every retiree did. She writes down her levers, in order, while she's calm. Lever 1 is small and available today. Her spending has about $150 a month of soft padding she identified with the highlighter. Streaming services she forgot she had, a lawn service she actually enjoys doing herself half the year. Trim $150 and her gap drops to $14.50 and her withdrawal rate lands just under 3.9%. She hasn't pulled this lever. She just knows exactly where it is, which changes how the whole plan feels. Lever 2 is the guardrail rule we walked through last episode, and here is my one line on it. If her portfolio ever falls 20% below its starting point, she trims her monthly transfer by 10% until it recovers. Written down, on paper, decided in calm weather. And lever 3 is the big structural one most couples never think about, and we'll get to it in a few minutes, because it's actually Linda's secret advantage. Meanwhile, her cash sits the way it should, about $20,000, a year's worth of the gap, in a high-yield savings account, so a bad market year never forces a bad decision. One person, same runway logic as last time. Let's talk about filing single, because the internet loves to scare people about this, and the reality for a retiree like Linda is gentler than advertised. Yes, single filers get about half the standard deduction of a couple, and the tax brackets are about half as wide. And yes, the thresholds where your Social Security starts becoming taxable are lower for singles, and they were never set at half of a couple's, so you cross them sooner than seems fair. Those things are all true, and if Linda had a big income, they would bite. But look at her actual return. Her taxable income is modest. About $12,000 a year comes out of the IRA, and the rest of her gap comes from the brokerage account, where she only owes tax on the growth, and where, as of 2026, someone at her income pays a 0% federal rate on long-term gains. 0. Against that income, she gets the single standard deduction, roughly $16,000 as of 2026, plus the extra amount for being over 65. Plus, through 2028, an additional senior deduction that can run up to $6,000 depending on income. Stack those up, and Linda's deductions swallow her taxable income almost whole. Her federal tax bill this year lands near zero, not low, near zero. I want to be careful here. Those deduction numbers move every year. The bonus senior deduction is scheduled to expire, and your state may want its own slice. So treat this as the shape of slice. So treat this as the shape of the math, not your math, and verify the current figures at irs.gov. One more quiet piece of good news. At 73, the government will start requiring minimum withdrawals from her pre-tax accounts. People fear this. But run Linda's numbers. On $330,000, the first required withdrawal works out to roughly $12,500, which is almost exactly what she's already taking out by choice. Her required distribution won't shove her into some ugly bracket. Her plan already walks at that speed. Now the harder section, and I'll keep my promise to stay calm, because none of this is a reason for fear. It's a reason for a page of paper. When you're married, there's a built-in second brain. Someone to notice the odd charge on the card, to drive you to the procedure, to handle the money for a month when you can't. A single retiree has to build on purpose what a couple gets by default. So Linda does 3 specific things, and none of them cost much. She keeps her cash cushion a bit fatter than a couple might, that $20,000 we talked about, because every surprise, the roof, the transmission, the dental implant, lands on one income. She writes the one-page plan. One sheet where the accounts are, what the monthly transfer is, who her accountant is, what the guardrail rule says. It hangs out in a folder her niece knows about. Alongside it, the legal basics, a durable power of attorney and a healthcare proxy, so that if she's ever laid up for a season, someone she trusts can keep the lights on. That's an afternoon with an attorney. It is the highest value afternoon in this entire episode. And she names her person. For Linda, it's her niece and a retired friend from the clinic. Not to manage her money. Just to be the second set of eyes she doesn't automatically have. I'll name the last one and then step back from it. Long-term care. A couple has a built-in first caregiver, and a single person plans for paid help sooner. That is a real difference. It deserves real numbers, and it's too big to bolt onto the end of an episode, so it gets its own lab soon. For today, know that it belongs on the single person's list, higher than it sits on a couple's. All right. I've given you the honest penalties. Now let me give you the other half, because it's real, and almost nobody says it. My college roommate Diane is 61, single, and every January she does her little spreadsheet ritual. For years she told me she felt behind, and when I finally asked, behind what, the answer was couples. Every video, every calculator, every dinner party number she'd ever heard was a two-person number. When we ran her actual one-person case, her $3,300 life against her savings and her future check, she wasn't behind. She'd been measuring herself against math that was never hers. So here is the math that is hers, and Linda's, and maybe yours. First, control. Linda's budget has one vote in it. When she decided to trim, nobody had to be persuaded, and nobody quietly resented the smaller vacation. Couples' plans fail in the negotiation more often than in the arithmetic. Hers has no negotiation. Second, speed. My neighbor Frank, 70, never married. 2 springs ago, he looked at his empty 4-bedroom house, did the property tax map, and decided it was silly. He listed in March, sold in May, and by June he was in a 2-bedroom place 6 blocks from his sister, $700 a month cheaper to run. Start to finish, 1 season. I know couples who have spent 5 years discussing that exact move. One signature moves fast, and in retirement, the ability to cut your biggest cost quickly is a form of safety no market can take away. That's Linda's lever 3. She owns a house she could trade down from any spring she chooses. Third, simplicity. 1 claiming age to pick, not a 2-person puzzle. 1 risk tolerance, 1 required distribution schedule. Fewer moving parts means fewer ways to get it wrong. And fourth, the one that reframes everything, no cliff. A married couple's plan contains a hidden drop that most of them never model. One day, one spouse is gone, one check disappears, and the survivor discovers the bills only fell by 20%. Planners call it the survivor gap, and it's brutal, financially and otherwise. Linda's plan simply does not contain that cliff. What she has is what she planned on, all the way through. There's a strange sturdiness in that. Here's what I've come to believe after sitting with this case. The hard part of retiring single was never really the arithmetic. Linda's numbers work: $2,200 in from Social Security, $1,600 from savings, $3,800 out, levers written down, near zero tax bill, no cliff. The hard part is that the whole culture of retirement planning talks past you. Every calculator with its spouse box, every case study with its couple, sends the same quiet message. The real plan is for 2, and yours is the leftover version. It isn't. A plan for 1 is not half a plan. It's a whole plan with 1 signature at the bottom, and in some ways it's the cleaner machine, fewer parts, faster steering, no cliff built into the middle of it. If you've been putting off running your numbers because the tools seem built for someone else, that ends this week. The math has room for you. It always did. So, your homework, and it's the same one I gave Tom and Carol's viewers, sized for 1. Find your gap number, what your life actually costs each month, minus your 1 check. That single number is the beginning of your whole plan. And if you're retiring solo, I'd love to hear the line in your budget that surprised you most, the one that refused to shrink, down in the comments. Those comments were the reason this episode exists. If this case helped, subscribing genuinely helps us make the next one, and the single series won't stop here. The long-term care lab and the claiming for one deep dive are both on the board. All figures are as of 2026, and this is education, not advice, so run your own numbers with your own professional before you move real money. I'm Susan Mitchell. Run your numbers. Know you're on track. I'll see you in the next one.